Hello everybody! Today we're doing a little bit of a hybrid between a ranking and an insider's guide. Each video in this mini-series will focus specifically on one skier level. Today we're talking about beginner terrain, basically all the bunny hills and green circle trails. I'm going to give you our top 5 ski resorts in the state for each skill level, and then a mini insider's guide for each resort just for that level. If you don't understand, just keep watching because it's pretty self-explanatory. So with that, let's begin a beginner skier's guide to Colorado ski resorts. First, we have Winter Park. Winter Park has a few small areas at the base near Gemini here that are all reserved for ski school. At the top of the Gemini chair is Discovery Park. The Gemini chair is nice for beginners as it is detachable, meaning it slows down for loading and unloading. Discovery Park, anchored by the Discovery chairlift and the Endeavor chairlift on peak days, has a ton of mild green terrain. After doing Discovery Park, you can head to the Prospector Express for a lap down Mad Tea Party, Mock Turtle, or Jack Kendrick. I would stay away from Alan Phipps until you're a little more confident, as it is one of the steeper greens. Lapping Prospector and Looking Glass is a great move after Discovery Park. March Hare to White Rabbit is a run I try to avoid as it is extremely busy, especially in comparison to Looking Glass's greens. After you've done the Prospector and Looking Glass area, you'll want to head to High Lonesome. The High Lonesome pod has a bunch of options, none of which tend to get too busy. This is where I would recommend spending most of your time if you're a beginner skier at Winter Park. The very bottom here is a little flat, but it isn't unmanageable. The one run I would recommend avoiding is Upper Whistle Stop, here, as it is the main egress from Lunch Rock back to the Winter Park territory. The main weakness with Winter Park's green network is getting back to the base. If you only ski greens, you have to take Parkway, Village Way, or Turnpike to get back to the base. These runs can get busy, slushy, and are overall not great for beginner skiers at the end of the day as more advanced skiers weave in and out of them. However, at the end of the day, the High Lonesome pod and the easy progression puts Winter Park as the 5th best Colorado resort for beginners. Next, we have Steamboat. Now, looking at the trail map, it doesn't exactly look flattering. While runs such as Why Not offer spectacular serenity meandering through the aspens, they are extremely long for beginner terrain. However, the main thing that gives Steamboat this ranking is that its entire operation is self-contained. While Steamboat is not the greatest for progressing from green to blues, it is one of the best places to first learn to ski. First of all, the learning area is actually on the mountain. Rather than being stuck at the base area looking up at the mountain, Steamboat's learning area, Greenhorn Ranch, is spectacularly set between the Thunderhead Express and the Wild Blue Gondola. You'll start your day by taking the brand new Wild Blue Gondola up to its mid-station. At Greenhorn Ranch, you'll start with a progression of carpets. The area is so carefully thought through that the snow is carved into several very slight banked turns on the first carpet to help you with learning to turn. The downside to this is that all of the carpets and progression terrain is reserved for ski school. Ski school has its lunch building there as well, really reinforcing the self-contained argument. The Greenhorn Ranch Express, open to everyone, is one of the nicest beginner lifts you'll find anywhere. After mastering the carpets and expresses features, you can get back onto Wild Blue Stage 2, being built this summer, which will whisk you straight up to the top of Sunshine Peak. From there, you can ski these greens in the Sunshine Pod, and at the end of the day, you can head all the way back to the base in the gondola, without having to deal with all of the crowds on these base area runouts. While it doesn't have a lot of big mountain greens, Steamboat runs a spectacular operation if you're first learning, earning it number 4 on our list. Now, we start getting into the no-brainers, starting with Loveland. Those previous two were a little bit of a stretch because there simply aren't that many great beginner mountains in Colorado. Of course, I can find a flaw in any resort, but that's not the point of this video. Loveland is split into 2 parts, the valley, here, and the basin, here. The valley is where the easiest terrain is, with Chair 7 serving your traditional bunny hill. Off of Chair 3 in the valley are the Boomerang and Zigzag greens. Zigzag is a little bit more narrow than Boomerang, and both are a bit steeper than Chair 7's. However, they are good progression runs after Chair 7 because they aren't as busy as the greens in the basin. The easiest greens in the basin are these two, Home Run and Tango, served by Chair 2. Deuces Wild off of Chair 6 and Fireball off of Ptarmigan are 2 pretty wide greens that are a little bit steeper than the Chair 2 greens. Mambo off of Chet's Dream is the busiest and steepest green in all of Loveland. I would get pretty comfortable with the greens before you go to Mambo. After you're comfortable with Mambo, the Chair 6 pod has some pretty easy blues that are all pretty great for advancing from green to blue. Quantitatively, Loveland doesn't have near as many greens as some other resorts, but the greens at Loveland are much higher quality than others because they are great for learning and are much less busy than other resorts' beginner terrain. Thus, Loveland is our third favorite resort for beginner skiers. Our second no-brainer for beginner skiers in Colorado is Crested Butte. There is a traditional bunny hill at the base area, served by this brand new Peachtree chairlift. After you're comfortable with that, you can head up the Red Lady Express lift. Houston is the easiest of the greens in the Red Lady pod. Head down Houston and then hit Painter Boy. Painter Boy is one of the busiest beginner areas in Crested Butte. Splains Gulch is a little bit steeper than Peachtree, but isn't too bad. There are a bunch of short little roads through the Aspens that are really tranquil over here. Gunsight Pass and Twin Bridges are more of roads, but they're not terrible because they're relatively quiet. After you're comfortable with both Peachtree and Painter Boy, you can start to lap the Red Lady greens. These runs are much longer than anything at the previous two areas, so make sure you're up to it or take frequent breaks. Houston is by far the easiest green, while most of the other greens in the pod are all equally steep. Once you start to ski blues, head up the Paradise Express and come down Yellow Brick and Aspen Park roads. They'll give you the full top-to-bottom experience of Crested Butte, from the rocks to the pines to the aspens. It's super scenic, and I believe everyone should do it at least once. To access the entrance of Yellow Brick Road, you'll come down Paradise Bowl. It's less steep on this side, so I would recommend skiing as far over as possible, all the way towards the T-bar before you cut back across to the Yellow Brick Road. Between the three beginner pods, the crowd spread out quite nicely at Crested Butte and foster an easy progression from the Bunny Hill to the Big Mountain Greens. Put that all in the spectacular setting of Mount Crested Butte, and you have the second best beginner ski area in Colorado. Now, ranked number 1, we have Beaver Creek. Beaver Creek has 2 great beginner pods and a bunch of other good greens scattered throughout the resort. Overall, it has very few weaknesses in beginner terrain as there is at least one good green in nearly every area. Starting at this main base, you have the Haymeadow Gondola and the Highlands Chairlift. Both serve this beginner area where you can first learn to ski or refresh your skills before you head up to the top of the mountain. Haymeadow can be annoying because you have to take your skis off after every run. After the beginner area, you can head up the Centennial and Cinch lifts to get you to the Red Buffalo pod. Red Buffalo serves all of these gentle, wide, empty greens. They are great to lap, and the kids' areas in the trees are good if you're skiing as a family. To get back from Red Buffalo, you'll have to go on Cinch around here. Make sure you don't accidentally go down Sheephorn or Centennial Face. Once you get down to the bottom of the Cinch lift, you can take Cinch here, or Dally here, all the way down to the base. Additionally, if you are too tired for either of those, which are both really long roads, you can get on the Centennial Express gondola and ride it back down. The other really good beginner pod is the brand new McCoy Park pod. The McCoy Park Express, similarly to Red Buffalo, offers access to over a dozen greens and easy blues. It is very quiet because there are so many runs, and they are all nice and long to give you plenty of time to practice your skills. Red Buffalo's greens are shorter than McCoy Park's, so if you're not confident with your endurance, I would recommend lapping Red Buffalo first. To get to McCoy Park, you'll need to take Strawberry from the main base, or Upper BC from the Bachelor Gulch area. Additionally, the easiest way to get to McCoy Park from Red Buffalo is to ski Cinch to Dally and then take the Larkspur Express, from which you can take Sanctuary into McCoy. Outside of McCoy, Sawbuck and Cabin Fever are both steeper greens. Intertwine is the easiest way to get back to the main base from the Bachelor Gulch and McCoy Park area. From McCoy Park, you can take the Reunion Lift or the upper part of Primrose, and then ski down BC Mountain Expressway to Lower Dally as well. Arrowhead is probably the worst place to stay if you're a beginner because it takes a lot to get over to McCoy and Red Buffalo. Little Brave is on the steeper side of greens, so I would recommend being comfortable with at least blues if you're going to stay at Arrowhead. The 2 big pods of greens are obviously what carries Beaver Creek. However, with those and the abundance of other greens in between, Beaver Creek is our clear favorite ski resort for beginner skiers in Colorado. That about wraps it up for beginner skiers. Please leave any questions down below. Go check out the other skill level guides or insider's guides to be in the know about all that Colorado ski resorts offer. Thank you all so much for watching. All my love, I'm out.